Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown allegedly went rogue on controversial play in Monday Night Football win. I love it when one of the legacy media members, the New York Post, unites with Philadelphia radio market's own 97.5 The Fans sports radio. What could go wrong? Let's just say that I'm going to take the contrarian view on this particular issue and say that while I respect a lot about Bill Colorado, who's the person who originally put out this messaging and got picked up by the New York Post, I will say I disagree with the word rogue, and I'm going to challenge that many of the people inside of the traditional, the old vanguard, the legacy media in particular, those guys don't really understand the terminology and they don't understand how to play the game. Essentially, what I'm asserting here is that there are a lot of people, not all of them, but there are a lot of people inside of legacy media groups, such as the New York Post and others, who, to be quite frank about the situation, they have never ever laced up cleats. They have never ever put on shoulder pads, and they have never ever buckled a chin strap a day in their life. They've never played a single down of organized football. And yet, they're talking about things that are very advanced in understanding, and I'm sorry, but you need a basis to understand. Some of the greatest sports analysts to ever analyze the game honestly never played a down of organized football, okay? One of my all-time favorites, Ray Didinger. He's on my Mount Rushmore of guys. I'm not too sure how much experience Ray Didinger had playing football, to be quite honest. However, even when you look at guys like Ray Didinger, you look at guys like Greg Cosell, what you see is that they shorten or they make up for that gap in knowledge by actually getting in front of guys who played at a certain level and then, basically learning from those guys how to actually analyze the game. I think that's a missing component of the modern sports media now, to be quite honest. I mean, I don't think any individual is responsible for it. I think it's a collective thing going on. But I got to tell you, someone who is now kind of dabbling in this to myself, it's disheartening. It's disheartening that it's all about clickbaitable titles. It's all about using certain words that are probably not factually correct, but will gather emotion and opinion from people. And there's a lost art in this about analysis, about analyzing the game. And I got to tell you, if you're calling what happened at the line of scrimmage going rogue, you don't know what an audible is. If you're saying that Jalen Hurts changed Nick Sirianni's play call, you don't understand the way that audibles are built into a system because, by the way, depending upon the look and the personnel package you are in, that will determine what you audible to. We can all disagree. I mean, there's nothing wrong with disagreeing about whether or not the audible should be made. I mean, you heard some guys who played football at a very, very high level, like Troy Aikman, question if that was the time and place to make that decision. Then you've heard even Nick Sirianni on the sideline was basically saying, like, why are we doing this? The gripe I have here is calling it rogue. They didn't go rogue. They audibled. And in my opinion, as someone who has actually played the game, has played the position in particular, and also has coached that position, I think this approach is completely wrong because, number one, it just doesn't educate people about what actually occurred on the field. And number two, it's just not realistic. It's not realistic to the circumstances to have like a further conversation about what it means for the Eagles going forward. Because you're setting up drama instead of setting up the actual real tension that's going on here, which is the Eagles are failing right now to overcome a lackluster run game. And I think it's time that we could have titled this a different video and we could have said, free Jalen. It's time to free Jalen Hurts. And I want to get into this aspect. Let me go on a tangent here. And let's talk for a second about what happened. All right. To begin with, as a quarterback coach, you're not going to come in with punitive actions against your quarterback. It's just not the way the freaking crap works, man. Your job as a quarterback coach is to lead the horse to water. Okay. And if you're truly talented at what you're doing, you can make them drink. The old saying, right? You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. Well, the talented quarterback coaches can make them drink, right? If there is a real relationship between the quarterback and the quarterback coach, your head coach, your offensive coordinator, your passing game coordinator, your offensive line coach, those key components to this thing, then you can make them drink the water, right? I don't think that this is a situation to where you can't pull Jalen Hurts into essentially the meeting room and run through that play and say, Jalen, in your eyes, like, what do you see from the defense? Tell me what you're seeing from the defense. what did you see on the field? Okay, you saw this look on the field, so why did you audible to this play? Like, what about this play? You know, the heart of what you're trying to get down to is you're trying to figure out, did he see something or did he misunderstand something in terms of what he saw from the Green Bay's like back end coverage? Did he have some kind of an issue with the way that they had lined themselves and just thought that running the ball was going to be a problem? Or, and lastly, did he get pressured into the situation? Was this one of those situations where he's like, look, I'm tired of being passive. I want to be aggressive here. I want to close this game out. And he felt the pressures of the game, right? You feel the pressures of the game and you go for this big chunk play, essentially. That's what you're getting down to. And the only person who can change the outcomes of this the next time around is Jalen Hurts, right? Jalen Hurts is the guy who's got to make these decisions ultimately at the line of scrimmage. That's why you hear me come down on people who talk about ranking these quarterbacks. Because let me tell you something. If you're ranking West Coast quarterbacks ahead of some of these guys that are in different systems, boy, you got a lot of explaining to do, because I don't think you know the game that well. Because I hate to tell you this, but if your guy is in a West Coast system, it is not quarterback driven. It is freaking coordinator driven. Yes, there are exceptions to the rules, right? You have like spread West Coast systems with Andy Reid where Mahomes is giving the latitude to do things. But it's not really at the line of scrimmage. Mahomes doesn't have that much control at the line of scrimmage, to be quite honest. What Mahomes does is when the play breaks down, he's really good at prolonging the play. He's really good at making you make sure that you contain your pass rush, right? You stay in your rush lanes, things like that. He's really good at extending plays. Okay, he's really good at going off schedule. All right. My point to this is you've got to get this through to Jalen Hurts because our system is very quarterback dependent. It places, the ball in the hands of the quarterback. He has a lot of leverage at the line of scrimmage to what he's allowed to do. Jalen sets your protections, right? Jalen does a lot of things at the line of scrimmage. He's reading in terms of he has to audible sides. An audible is not always an audible to another play. You can literally just be switching the side you're running to. You could be switching, there's all kinds. You could be going alert. You could be alerting somebody that, hey, if this player comes, this is where the ball's going, right? We're alerting to what the defense may or may not do, or you're audibling into a completely separate play because you read something maybe in the back end, all right? Jalen has a ton of responsibility at the line of scrimmage. This is so left out of people's conversations about Jalen Hurts, and it irritates the crap out of me because a lot of these people have no idea what they're talking about, if I'm being honest. Another issue that I see here personally with this situation is nobody's talking about the impact the running game is having on this offense, okay? There were a lot of people that I saw in my comments and in other content creators' comments, live streams, things like that, especially live streams. I saw this quite a bit, where you guys kept saying that the loss of people like Johnny Wilson, right? The loss of Ben Van Sumeren during the opening kickoff of the season. Well, those are just role players. It's not that big of a deal. You sure about that? You sure about that, Chief? Because it seems like a pretty big deal right now, right? It seems like we're having a hard time when you compound those injuries also with the fact that you had Landon Dickerson not starting the season off healthy, right? Now, Juergens has been down for a few games for us. Lane Johnson's had his issues in and out of the lineup this year in terms of, he hasn't really missed a game, I don't believe. But he's had his issues in terms of being in and out of the lineup, in terms of not being able to complete games or having to leave for X amount of snaps like he did this Monday night and have to come back. The health of the O-line mixed in with these skill position players who also assist in the run game, right? Johnny Wilson has a lot to do with what we were able to do, not only from 11 personnel in terms of the run game, but also what we could do from 12 personnel in the run game, right? When they lost Ben Van Sumeren, you lost a lot what you could do from two back sets. Now, they've used alterations, right? I will shut out A.J. Brown and say for all the crap that A.J. Brown's catching right now, A.J. Brown has been more consistent in the run game than I've seen him in past seasons. He's using his physicality. He's using his physical gifts there. I do notice that, right? Darius Cooper was another loss, right? We got him back, but Darius Cooper was playing pretty well in terms of having a role within the run game, right? He's not a tall dude. I think he's only like 5'11", maybe just short of 6 foot, but he's a physical guy at the receiver spot. And he is a halfway decent run blocking wide receiver, and we lost him for a few games on top of the Johnny Wilson injury. We've used guys like Latu. We've used guys like Granson to come in and kind of sub in for Ben Van Sumeren, right? Where we're using these tight ends and these H-back kind of lead back roles, if you will. Lead block roles, I should say there. We have all these things going on, but the health of the run game is not the same right now. And that's a big part of why I think there's a lot of pressure on the offense. And I think the answer to this is, number one is health. This team's got to get healthy. The line right now, we saw when the line is relatively healthy, right? When we were just basically subbing in Toth for, Cam Jurgens. Look, when you had a healthy Landon Dickerson, when you had a healthy Lane Johnson, right? When you had guys that were healthy, we can commit to jumbo sets, which is one of the things we're doing to counteract some of our injuries. And I think it's one of the best curveballs that we've thrown at things right now. You go into jumbo sets, right? I mean, we saw what happened in terms of the jumbo sets to where they bring in Big Fred. That's been effective for us. But I do think the run game in general, man, people are missing the forest for the trees on this. It's the line, guys. It's the O-line. Yes, our O-line is talented, but it hasn't been healthy. And this is one of the, the downsides. I won't call it downside, guys. Winning the Super Bowl is pretty much gravy, you know what I mean? But it is one of the things that, not a downside, but could be a challenge for the returning season, is that you have a shorter duration in terms of being prepared for the next season, right? I mean, these guys are pretty much getting this very probably micro off season together before they have to then basically come back to probably work on contracts, work on getting themselves ready for the next season. Like, you shorten that window of time basically. And I think that we're seeing kind of the effects a little bit on the Eagles, and we're having some effects here. But at the end of the day, this team is 7-2. And I'm worried about this Detroit game just like the rest of you are. But if the Eagles find a way of winning that Detroit game, they have a very firm hold on the NFC. Especially if Seattle loses to the Rams. This upcoming weekend is pretty dang important. O-line, guys, it's got to get healthy. We're dealing with some personnel losses, and it's affecting our ability to run the ball as effectively as we did the year prior. Add on to that the fact that teams have had an offseason to work with us. But truth be told, it's not like teams didn't know last year what we were doing. You might have gotten by a couple of weeks on that, but eventually they start to figure it out. And the facts were that even though they knew it was coming, unless they sold out the entirety of their defense and left us singled up on the outside, they couldn't stop the run. Kansas City finally had enough of it, and they said, listen, you're not going to run the ball on us. We are going to literally stack the box until you cannot numerically outnumber us in the box. And then they got burnt in the secondary. They got absolutely torched in the secondary. We don't have that ability right now. We don't have that switch. We don't have the health, and we're down some guys personnel-wise. We'll see how they work this out, guys. I mean, I still think that part of the solution has to be to free Jalen Hurts and stop calling crap rogue when it ain't rogue. All right, y'all. I appreciate y'all's time and attention. Listen, YouTube's telling me that if you want a video that's discussing some of the intricacies of play calling and things like that, the video I made last year where before anyone put it out there, I informed you guys that I heard the quarterback cadence. And listen, the quarterback cadence it's eerily similar to Tom Brady, and I'm pretty sure we're running an Perkins version of the language behind the scheme. Now, no scheme is 100% anything anymore, but there are language bases to schemes. And I thought that it was very obvious from the cadence we were running Perkins. And I turned out to be right. If you want to see that video, it's right there, guys. I appreciate y'all's time and attention. I'll see you guys on the next video.